Good morning. Welcome to the First Religious Society Unitarian Universalist in Newburyport, Massachusetts. I'm Joanna Fernandez, and I have the privilege of serving as your worship associate this morning. We have a special service today, one that was co-created by members of our Accessibility Inclusion Ministry, more familiarly known as AIM, and Reverend Rebecca. It is a service inspired by and dedicated to the loving memory of AIM's founder, the Reverend Dr. Helen Murguida, who was, amongst many significant life roles, an affiliate minister at FRS. AIM works to ensure FRS draws its circle of accessibility inclusion wide and wider still. As you partake in and are inspired by this service, please know that AIM welcomes not only our thoughts and ideas, but also welcomes each and every one of us to be a formal part of their team. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome. We are so glad you are here. If you're new and you would like to connect, please fill out one of the blue cards in your pew and put it in the collection plate. We come together at FRS in person and online, committed to love, peace, and justice. Our mission and our invitation to each of you is to come as you are, journey together in love, act with courage, transform our world. If you are worshiping online and would like to access this morning's order of service, please click on the link just below the live stream. If you would like a large print order of service or hymnal, please ask an usher and they will be happy to help you. Please take a moment and review your order of service for all the activities happening this week. We hope that everyone will join us after the service today in Parish Hall for soup and salad. We will then be joined by Judy Timon of the YWCA Greater Newburyport Housing Choice Coalition, who will help us understand what is going on with affordable housing in our area, why it is happening, and to start the conversation about what we can do. Everyone, members and friends, are invited and encouraged to come to a conversation with the board next Sunday, February 9th, from 11:45 to 1 in the lower meeting house. We will hear an update about where we are in our work to renovate the parish hall and ask questions of the team that is working on the parish hall renovations. As a member of this team, I'd like to share a special plea with those of us who skew on the younger side of the adult church population. Please, yes, I'm including myself. I don't know if you're laughing at that, but please make time to attend. We are the future of this church, so come and join the conversation from the start. We will also hear from the stewardship team about this year's annual campaign about how we can help them out. One final announcement, Danny Harrington is playing at FRS today at 3, so come back to the sanctuary later and enjoy. Every Sunday, it is such a blessing that we get to be together. So let's gather and give ourselves to it. It is so, so good to be together. Welcome once again.
Our monthly ministry theme this month is relationships. And our service this morning is a beautiful beginning to this important topic. So may we open our minds and our hearts to the importance of healthy and diverse, healing and holy relationships made stronger by our differences and united in our shared humanity. Our call to worship this morning are the words by Cindy Fesgen, cherishing our differences. We are all capable in different ways, with various strengths and talents. We are all wholly, part of the universe and the interdependent web. We come together cherishing our differences and holding each other in sacredness. Please rise in body and in spirit, and let's join our voices in our opening hymn, Teal Hymnal 1052, The Oneness of Everything.
And go. Here beyond the grasp of hand, or light to meet the eye, as the reaches of the dawn. There find the key to nature's harmony, in architecture so like the bird whose patterns grace the sky, and carry all with joy and love expanding. The message of peace will rise in flight, taking the weight of the world upon its wings. In the oneness of everything, peace is in the dance of trees, who stir before the first breath of wind is yet received. Trust in the song becoming one with the dance, and all mysteries can be believed. Songs of love long past the touch of old are written in the earth ever giving. And now to maintain the harmony gives to us all lives worth living. For the oneness of everything. Still we seek to find the truth, that we might understand and reduce to just vast and immeasurable time and space, also overwhelming we design. Oh, passing years just might I know the faith that winters in the heart to be reborn, to hear and to feel the pulse of life enters my soul as a song to sing of the oneness of everything. I'd like to invite members of the AIM team and the worship service here, please, to come up. If you have been a member of AIM previously or come to some of our meetings, we are also inviting you to join us up here. We welcome you. Please join me in saying the chalice words as Matthew lights the chalice. The words are in your order of service. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
Each week, We also light 2 candles of peace, representing 2 places on earth that need peace. As we say each Sunday, we know that there are untold numbers of places on earth that need peace. These 2 we will hold in our hearts and our minds in this service and through the week ahead. After each candle is lit, I invite us all to respond by saying peace in 3 languages: peace, salam, shalom. Our first candle is lit for the skies and the waters near Reagan International Airport, where the lives of 67 people were lost after a collision between a commercial commuter jet and an Army helicopter. We mourn for the lives of those who died and those who loved them in this tragedy. And we stand up in support of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we resist all who speak and spread any untruths. To this we respond, peace, salam, shalom. Our second candle this morning is lit for all of the places in this country where rights are being threatened because of people's identity. Queer, brown and black, Hispanic and Asian, Arab and Jew, Indigenous, immigrant, and native-born, neurodiverse, disabled people, folks with mental health challenges, gender diverse, or simply female. For all of those who feel unsafe, may we provide support, understanding, allyship, love, and empowerment to normalize and validate the reality of this vast majority of our country, and to create safety always in our own place of worship. To this we respond, peace, salam, shalom. Let's rise now in body and in spirit and join our voices in our affirmation of faith, followed by the doxology. The words can be found in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. Please be seated.
Good morning. I would love to invite any children who are with us today to come on up for a time for all ages with my friend Lee. You guys want to come sit over here? Elodie. Oh, Rebel Laurel. That's right. Young at heart. She's just a baby. Check, check.
It's on.
So Lee is part of our AIM group, and that stands for Accessibility and Inclusion Ministry. She's going to tell us a little bit about what that group here at church does.
Well, have you ever been to a circus, seen a big circus tent? Our church is kind of like a big tent. And what we at AIM do is make sure that everybody feels included in that tent. Whether they can hear well or have trouble hearing, whether they can walk and run or need sticks and walkers to help them get around, or whether they read easily or find it difficult to read. So our title is Accessibility and Inclusion. Does anybody know what inclusion means? Got any thoughts about that?
Anybody want to share? Oh, okay, you don't have to share. Do you want to share?
It means to invite someone kind of into your, like kind of your world, kind of like come and include them in your friendship, kind of.
I love that. Invite somebody into your world. Yeah. Any other thoughts about that? Yeah. It's kind of like making people feel like they belong, right?
Does anyone have like? Can any of you think of a time where something made you feel included?
Anytime you've been like on the playground and somebody helps you feel like you belong, or in a classroom, or in church, or anywhere?
No, not at the moment. It's hard in the moment sometimes.
Yeah. All right. I can tell you, there were times when I was a kid over at Newbury Elementary School where I didn't feel like I did belong. And when somebody invited me to play their game, it felt so wonderful to feel included, and it made me want to include other people, right?
So what does it feel like when someone reaches out to us and includes us in something? What did that feel like for you, Lee, when you experienced that?
It made me feel not so weird.
Yeah.
It made me feel like somebody cared about me, and I didn't know whether anybody cared about me or not. And when you see kids alone on the playground, there's a playground that has a red bench in it. Do you know about this? And if you go sit on that red bench, it means you want some company, and anybody can come and sit with you and talk to you. It's like this beautiful sign saying, "I want to be included."
Can you think of a time where you didn't feel included? Has anyone ever not felt included in a moment? Yeah.
Reverend Laurel, you want to tell?
Oh dear.
You didn't have a specific example today,
Yeah.
but you have felt it.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm wondering what are some things that we can do to help others feel included? And knowing the children in this group, I know that you are people who tend to welcome others, because I've seen it here in church when we have new friends joining us. What are some things that we can do? We can invite people to play with us on the playground, asking them what they need or what they like. Well, we're going to go downstairs and we're going to read a book that is all about different ways that we can include all different people. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, let's do it.
Then let's please join us in singing hymn number 413, Go Now in Peace, and sing the Children to Young Church.
Good morning. We first heard this reading a couple of years ago during one of Reverend Helen's services. The reading is titled, we gather here as individual people. We gather here as individual people, young and old, male and female, temporarily able, disabled, gay, lesbian, bisexual, and straight people. We gather together as atheists, theists, agnostics. We gather together as different, unique individuals. At the same time, we also gather here as a community of people who are more than categories. We gather here, each ministering to the other, meeting one another's strengths, encouraging wholeness. We give thanks for this extraordinary blessing, the gathering together of separate, unique individuals as one whole, one body, our church. Here may our minds stretch, our hearts open, our spirits deepen. Here, may we acknowledge our brokenness and be ever stirred by love's infinite possibilities. Amen. So we gather here as individual people in a community, broken, yet ever stirred by love's infinite possibilities. True. But I ask myself, what do I, together with you, do with this? I was also invited today to share an uplifting announcement for our community in the face of something tragic. A year ago, February 28th, Newburyport held its annual State of the City meeting. A year ago, Reverend Helen was invited to share the opening prayer to bring the attendees to one mind. As we know, Reverend Helen passed away walking from here to City Hall for this event. 1 year later, the mayor has a new State of the City meeting announcement. Quote, "Join us for a special celebration featuring remarks by Mayor Reardon, special guests from the State House, and other city officials. The event will culminate with the 3rd Annual Public and Community Service Awards and the 1st Annual Reverend Helen Mergida Service Award." End quote. Until this announcement, I was unaware that Newburyport already awards 4 honors to individuals in one of 4 different categories of public and community service. What a fantastic commitment. This year and for all years to come, the mayor and his staff have added this 5th award in honor of Reverend Allen. So as a general announcement, an invitation, please know that all are welcome to attend this State of the City event, including the presentation of these 5 service awards. Wednesday, February 28th at 7 p.m., City Hall. I'll be there. Reverend Rebecca will attend. All are welcome. Getting back to, what do we do? Individual people in a community, broken, yet ever stirred by love's infinite possibilities. Mayor Reardon's description of the spirit of the Reverend Helen Award might serve as a source of reflection and example for us all as we learn every day how to embody our communal intention of love, acceptance, and inclusion of all. The Reverend Helen award description reads in part, quote, much like Reverend Helen, the recipients of the Reverend Helen Award embody the belief that service to others is not only a responsibility, but a profound privilege. Through their actions, awardees remind us to approach challenges with humility, to listen with compassion, and to act with courage. Values Reverend Helen lived by every day, end quote. As her son, I can vouch for that. Humility, compassionate listening, action with courage, no excuses, every day, every person. As a final prayer, may we all walk every day of our lives with interest in others, compassion, courage to act, and humility, especially humility. Amen.
Thank you, Matthew. The generosity of our community is an essential ministry that supports the work of the church both in Newburyport and beyond. Each week, 50% of the Sunday offering not designated as a pledge goes to a local community partner engaged in important efforts to transform our region. Our community partner this month is Massachusetts Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence. This coalition brings together over 90 organizations across the state, including our church, to end the epidemic of gun violence by advocating for improved policies around gun safety and partnering with community organizations working to end violence in their neighborhoods. To give online, please use the link in your order of service or below the live stream. You can also make a contribution by text, and of course, you can also mail a check to the church as well. Thank you. The offering will now be gratefully received.
would like to take a moment before we offer more joys and sorrows to invite all of us to just come together. Come together at a time when the world is crying for our help. When things seem more than impossible and overwhelming. And at the same time, each and every one of us lives with the difficulties and the losses and the joys in our own lives. Here in this gathered body of beautiful souls committed to love, peace, justice. May each and every one of us feel the care in this space. Draw on the strength of our gathered body. Melt into the warmth of the shared embrace. May it be so. So each week we do share the joys and the sorrows, the hopes and the concerns of all of us gathered, both in person and online. And we have a number of them this morning, so I will share them one at a time. And Tom Himmel, our pastoral care associate, will be lighting candles as I do. Julie Menon asks that we hold and have healing thoughts as her friend Nanette's parents, who have both been in the hospital, are there recently now for flu and pneumonia. We light another candle of care and concern. Stacy Surratt and Aspen ask that we hold Lorraine Surratt in the peaceful light of this beloved community. Lorraine is Stacy's mom and Aspen's Nana, and Lorraine is terminal and getting worse. Stacy and Aspen also ask that the congregation holds them in love and care and wishes blessings as they are finally being screened for housing after a lengthy wait. Nancy McCarthy asks that we hold in love and care Ed Chapman. Ed is her two daughters' father, and Ed had a bad fall in Wisconsin and is currently in ICU. We also light a candle this morning for Anita Wright, who hopefully is online with us. Anita fell on black ice the night before last, fracturing her right wrist. She's having surgery on her wrist this week. She shares that she and Dot are doing fine. They're grateful it wasn't worse. So please do be careful out there. Alex Measy lights a candle of loving memory as today marks the 1-year anniversary since her dear sister Ginny Maisie Becker Sorley left this earth. Alex writes this: Ginny is ever deeply missed by our family. Her bright and warm spirit lives on for all who knew and loved her. Ginny's husband, Louis, or Bob Stone Sorley III, died in September, and our family will gather in April at West Point, where Bob, named a distinguished West Point graduate, will be buried beside Ginny. May they rest in peace and know that our love surrounds them. Sorry, this is an organic process. I number them as they come. Bear with me. We light an additional candle this morning that Nancy McCarthy has shared, both a candle of sorrow and joy and gratitude. Nancy writes, "Through the immense pain of losing Jay, and though the weight of this is heavy, I find joy in the love and support of my family, including my 2 daughters and my 2 stepchildren who were with Jay and me every day he was in the hospital. I find joy from the tremendous outpouring of love from this beloved community, most especially Reverend Rebecca, who has been a click away for me through it all. I am immensely grateful for the comfort shawl crafted by the beautiful UU members, for the nourishment delivered to my door, for all the heartfelt cards and letters. Thank you so much for comforting me in this extremely difficult time. I am aware that it might get worse before it gets better, but I am confident I can move forward with such amazing support from this church community." And Jay's service will be here on Saturday, March 29th at 1 p.m., and I will be officiating. So we light a final candle, as we do each week, for all of the joys and all of the sorrows, all of the concerns and all of the dreams and hopes that, although unspoken, are held in just as much love and care. I'll invite us now to join Nick in singing "Make Me a Sanctuary." May it be so.
Good morning. I would like to begin by acknowledging the work Reverend Helen did in our community to make this discussion about accessibility, inclusion, and belonging possible. These topics are particularly important to me because our family has experienced disabling impacts from COVID. But my remarks today seek to elevate voices from the disability justice community at large, who want us to know that medically vulnerable people have felt ignored, endangered, and abandoned by our nation's response to the pandemic. However, as I begin, allow me to also make 2 important points. First, there is diversity regarding how individual people manage their own health, and I am not speaking for all medically vulnerable people. Additionally, we are all, in fact, at risk of poor health outcomes from infection. In early 2020, disability activist Imani Barbarin warned that COVID-19 was a mass disabling event. Her prediction was ominously correct and reflected the knowledge that 80% of all disabilities are acquired. Despite this, most non-disabled people have great confidence that their health and their abilities will remain stable. However, being able-bodied is, by and large, a temporary and privileged state. In fact, 43.9% of people aged 65 or older report disability, and women are more than 30% more likely to develop long COVID and other chronic illness. This might be of particular interest to our congregation, which has an older and more female membership. At this time last year, more than 17 million Americans reported having long COVID. 79% with activity limitations and nearly half with disabling symptoms. Numerically, this is exactly on par with the number of Americans who have cancer. It is triple the number of people who have Alzheimer's and quadruple the number of people who have HIV, Parkinson's, and MS combined. I share this not to diminish those conditions, but to point out that long COVID is now similarly or more common than these familiar conditions, and it also leaves people with limited mobility, chronic pain, cognitive impairment, and at risk of further disability or death. Although I'm certainly making a case for protecting yourself, the questions posed by the Accessibility and Inclusion Ministry ask us to consider others. How do we help people feel that they belong here? What barriers do we put up that unintentionally exclude people? Answering the question about barriers is actually pretty easy. Our larger non-masking culture, which is mirrored in our church, is a barrier which excludes the medically vulnerable from joining us. It's really that simple. But there is a hidden, perhaps more important question here. The question of intention is something many of our social justice teams discuss and sometimes struggle with. How much responsibility do we hold when the harm we cause is unintentional? If we pair this question of intention with the now famous wisdom from Dr. Maya Angelou that we are all familiar with, we have that simple answer too. When you know better, do better. If we would like people to come as they are and journey with us, including the medically vulnerable, we cannot expect them to endanger themselves to do so. The chronic illness community uses the phrase millions missing to describe their disappearance and isolation. Look around. Who is missing from our space? Offering a safe place may feel like an inconvenient or impossible task. It may, as the rest of our mission says, take courage. But doing so may also help us accomplish the last part of our mission, to transform our world. And I do not suggest this lightly. Disability activists have been sounding the alarm about the connections between pandemics, social polarization, and fascism throughout the lead up to this federal crisis. As we each make choices about where to put our energy in this crisis, I share another long-standing message from disability activists. Masking is a form of resistance. The dismantling of already flawed public health and safety net systems is not about reducing budgets. Dozens of executive orders target vulnerable people, echoing the references to a so-called merit-based society we heard in the inauguration speech. These are frightening and sinister implications, especially for disabled people who already exist in our cultural framework that ties worth and survival to merit, which in turn is highly tied to the ability to work. Additionally, the history buffs among us already know that it's widely understood by social scientists that the 1918 flu was a key factor in the rise of fascism. In fact, this was validated in a 2022 American Journal of Public Health study, which concluded that the unequal impacts of pandemics contribute to political polarization and subsequently fascism. It is a terrifying time for all marginalized people, especially those who are multiply marginalized. And, as you may already know, disability, poverty, and race are highly entwined. When you mask, you protect yourself and others, especially those at highest risk. Therefore, you personally make the places you go more accessible. You also signal that you support science and that you reject disinformation and propaganda. You communicate that you know unequal impacts are harmful and that you stand with marginalized people and vulnerable people. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you all a little bit of a personal question. Who here is between 65 and 74 years young? Awesome. Keep your hands up. Who here is over 75? All right, take a look around for a minute. That's a lot of us. You can put them down. Thank you. 1/3 of us between 65 and 74 have hearing loss, and 1/2 of us over 75 have hearing loss. When we can't hear or understand what people are saying, we tend to stay away. Here's what Erica Hewitt, Minister of Worship Arts for the Unitarian Universalist Association, has to say. What you're saying when you say, "I don't need a mic." Hearing loss is common among Unitarian Universalists, as we just noticed. One of ableism's most sinister characteristics is the portrayal of able bodies as the norm, devaluing people with differences and disabilities. And one of its most common forms is the phrase, "Oh, I don't need a microphone." One religious leader explains, when a mic is available at a meeting and someone says, "Do I really need a microphone?" I feel outright anger. That person essentially just asked if people like me really exist and demanded that we defend ourselves. In other words, choosing not to use a microphone is a form of exclusion. Our same religious leader says, when I'm excluded, I feel weary, frustrated, and invisible. It's as though I'm on the other side of a plate glass window from the room where almost everyone else is, and they don't even notice that I'm stuck outside of their conversation. So for all of us who have trouble hearing, this is what we hear when you say, "I don't need a microphone." And I'll warn you, these might be a little uncomfortable to some of us. I'm assuming that everyone can hear me, so it's your problem if you can't. You need to assert yourself. My self-consciousness about speaking to a group matters more than you hearing what I have to say. Providing a microphone is just not on my priority list. We know nobody sets out to exclude others, but unconsciously, we often send these kinds of messages that are at odds with our intentions to be inclusive. So if you wish to practice more inclusivity for our beloveds with hearing limitations, AIM offers coaching on how to speak clearly, slowly, and loud enough. And if you're planning meetings on Zoom, in person, hybrid, you can make sure that all participants are seated in a way that they can lip read if necessary and have adequate sound. And this is obviously a challenge for us now and in the past with masking. This is huge. Talk about barriers, a barrier for everybody, but we need it. So this also includes allowing time between speakers so we don't talk over each other and checking in periodically to see if everyone is okay. AIM would love to work with you to make all of our activities more accessible. We have lots of projects just waiting to be put in place. The legacy of Reverend Hallen is that of action. So come talk with us after the service in the vestibule. We have a table there. Share your ideas for accommodations that you or members of your family might need and how you would like to be involved in AIM. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lance Heidi, a member of the AIM team. And I would like to ask you to close your order of service so that you can see the diagram, a little colorful illustration that's on the cover, because I'm going to refer to it in these words. And I really thank Reverend Rebecca for giving us time to pack all of this information into what was supposed to be an hour. Thank you very much. So for 21 years, I had the honor of working half-time, or 20 hours a week, at Northern Essex Community College. I retired in 2020. For 18 of those years, I was a professor of art and graphic design. I quickly observed that my art faculty colleagues seemed to be more attuned to the students with invisible disabilities than the rest of the faculty seemed to be. It makes sense that students with learning disabilities would sign up for visual arts for the simple reason that not much reading is required. And some of the art professors themselves, I learned in conversations with them, have learning disabilities as well. I was one of them. While I never was diagnosed, I struggled in school from kindergarten through college with reading and writing. And that is why I went into visual communication fields like book design and photography, where my affinity for visual thinking was all of us with disabilities normally have some kind of super strength that compensates, and mine was visual thinking. And these fields allowed me to excel. And many of my art students had invisible disabilities too. They often excelled and got some of the top grades in the class, while they were at the same time struggling and sometimes failing English and math classes. A few had disclosed their disabilities to qualify for assistance through the ADA, or Americans with Disabilities Act, but most were not diagnosed, as had been the case for me. Identifying with those students, I found myself getting to know the team of women who worked in the Learning Accommodation Center. Awakening to a field that I had known little about, I switched from classroom teaching to spending my last 3 years working in learning accommodations. This is the name tag that I wear here at the church, and I was asked to redesign all the name tags for the college employees so that they were more legible for people with vision impairment. I also want to credit Mara Flynn's mother, Judith. Mara's downstairs with the children, so I'm sorry she doesn't get to hear this, but her mother, Judith Camber, was a vice president for professional development at Northern Essex Community College. And she was one of the people who had the biggest influence on my decision, encouraging me and supporting me to work with learning accommodations. My professional skills in graphic design turned out to be useful to communicate to the college community what disabilities are and what kind of support was available there at the college for students who had disabilities. Communication about disabilities is very complex, partly because there are so many, and they are both physical and mental, and to complicate it more, they are all on a graduation scale. They're all on a spectrum, not just autism, they are all on a spectrum. I was surprised to learn that the spectrum applied to dyslexia, the reading impairment that makes it slow or even impossible to read. Many people, including myself, are in the mid-range of dyslexia. That means we can read, yes, but it is frustratingly slow, often requiring rereading passages or pages. And some of us give up reading books completely, or, as in my case, switch to audiobooks. Now I listen to 2 books per month, and I no longer consider dyslexia to be a disability. You may want to consider whether you or your loved ones might also be in the mid-range of an undiagnosed disability. You might look to see if anything can be offered, to help. All disabilities can be alleviated to some degree with accommodations, including ones that you may not be aware of. The diagram on the cover of the Order of Service involved interesting trial and error work with the team at the college, trying to distill the range of disabilities into 8 categories and to settle on the best icon to represent each one. The gradient bar below them was needed to emphasize the concept of the spectrum. It was part of our campaign to encourage students with disabilities, most of which were invisible, to risk disclosing their disabilities to seek accommodations that they were entitled to by federal law. This diagram appeared in posters that I hung on every floor of every building on both the Haverhill and Lawrence campuses of Northern Essex. It appeared in presentations given to staff, to faculty, to administrators, and to students. An example of the effectiveness of the campaign was demonstrated by one second semester student who was struggling with grades. And when she saw the icon of the person with psychiatric disabilities, the icon shows a person seated in a chair with head and hands, she asked me privately if that might include anxiety. She explained that before exams, she was paralyzed by anxiety or panic attacks, which resulted in disappointing grades, often C's and D's. And I suggested that she ask her doctor to sign a diagnosis that she could use to apply for accommodations. I ran into her on campus a year later. She told me that my colleagues in the accessibility office arranged for her to take untimed tests, meaning that she could go to a quiet room monitored by a staff member and take as long as she needed for the test. Because of that, she was then getting all A's, straight A's. And she decided to serve as an ambassador, speaking to classmates about invisible disabilities and encouraging them to seek accommodations. All of us experience disabilities at various times in our lives. Some are temporary, while others are chronic, often becoming progressively challenging as we age, such as pain in the joints and back, dimming of eyesight and hearing, balance problems. A lot of you are familiar with them and others. And usually we can adapt to them in some degree and continue to carry on with our lives. Unfortunately, many disabilities carry a stigma that can be more harmful than the disability itself. Quoting from Friday's New York Times, President Trump told reporters without evidence on Thursday that the FAA's, that's the Federal Aeronautic Administration, hiring of people with disabilities was linked to the mid-air collision of an airplane and a military helicopter. No evidence for that, but he said it. Clearly, his attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion is as much about the Americans with Disabilities Act as it is to issues of race, sexual identity, and other things that he attacks. This discrimination is not new. It is why my former staff colleagues in the Learning Accommodation Center, as well as the late Reverend Helen Mergida, whom I worked with here at FRS, have risen as a different kind of role model for me and others than the ones that I looked up to in my younger days. These talented and caring professionals showed every day the importance of treating disabilities in strict privacy and to see people not for their disabilities, but to appreciate and support their strengths and abilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance, and August, and Matthew, and Lee. So many of you wrote, and I'm actually, don't worry, I'm not gonna talk. I'm going to acknowledge that many of you answered my request about sending emails around things that maybe we hadn't thought about here, things that we didn't realize that you were dealing with that were perhaps visible and invisible disabilities. So all of those are collected and continue to share, because we only know when we share. Some of these things are pretty, I think, easy to respond to, like, I haven't even told anybody this, you're all the first. Let's get some rugs back in Parish Hall. When the Zarias were there, people could hear. Now, without the rugs on the ground, it's just people who have hearing issues are finding it really difficult to hear. There are things we can do. So I also just wanted to say real quick, here's what I really want to say for my sermon at this moment. This sort of information can be, or is, a lot. It's important, and it's real, and it's a lot. And what often we do when things are that much are things like we just can't handle it, and we just push it aside, or we go take a drink, or I don't know what we do, but we don't know how to just let it kind of move through us. We're not going to fix and solve everything in one moment. So I would encourage us to do the things that work for us, right? If you're able and want to, just move your body. Just like shake it off, like literally, like animals do. Hum, get outside in the air. Let the sun beam down on your face. Because we actually need to be present and well and let some of all that out so we can see the possibilities and take action. So if you want to dance with me, I'm here. I'll be doing it. And let's join our voices in singing together, Lean on Me. And rather than singing, calling our brother, we're going to call on our friends. It's hymn number 1021 in the teal hymnal, Lean on Me.
We know that there
So let's remain standing or sitting and join in saying our unison benediction. The words are different this morning, so please look to your order of service. These are words written by Reverend Helen while Joanna extinguishes the chalice. These are tumultuous times. We need each other and genuine self-care now more than ever, so that we can be the light the world needs right now. It doesn't help anyone or any circumstance if we hide, and at the same time, we must do all we can to remain connected to our center and live from that place of love. My friends, that place of love that is within us, that is around us, that is between us, that is below us, above us, always, always here. As we go from this place this morning, may we go lifted up. May we go knowing that we have learned more about each other, that we have been challenged to open our minds and our hearts. And may we go knowing that always here is a place that you can return. My friends, do go in peace and return again in great joy. Amen and blessed be.